So Jimbo was the type that if you gave him a quad or a motorcycle, he would have killed himself. So his dad, when he went to retire his lawnmower, just basically handed it off to Jimbo, and that was his first wheeling rig, meaning he would take that off-road and beat the piss out of it. Him and his buddy Lincoln used to go crazy all over the area and just rip shit up on these piece of shit lawnmowers with chains on the back. He would mob that fucker all over his property like it was seriously a quad and just beat the shit out of it. It would sit there and puff smoke out of the exhaust, which did not exist. That fucker just ran right off the head, just wah! His neighbors must have hated him. Anyways, he blew that fucker up, and then he got a brand new lawnmower that somebody had donated to him. New to him, but it was an old piece of shit with no deck. And I show up at James's house, and he has spent a lot of time modifying this thing. When I say modifying, I mean like stage 3 weight reduction with a sawzall, just chopping shit off this thing so that it looks mean. Grab the old rattle can off the shelf and give it a old decorating job. Silver and red, it'll look pretty. Get it running really good so that it's puffing really nice blue smoke out of the back of the garage and just damn near killing us from fucking carbon monoxide poisoning. Listening to KUFO 101 from Portland, which does not exist anymore. R.I.P. KUFO. And he gets the bright idea. He has been fucking working on this thing for like 20 hours. And he gets the bright idea. I'm gonna jump the Christmas tree that's laying on its side in my front yard in the garden. I'm game. So I'm just like fucking ready to go. I gotta grab a dip, put it in, and I'm gonna go watch the show. Jimbo takes off in a puff of smoke down the driveway and takes off for this fucking Christmas tree with a mission. Bears down on it, the front tires hit the Christmas tree, and guess what? The fucking machine decides it's gonna go for the sky. James rides it out. Fucking machine comes all the way back on top of him, just slams down on its roof. Big puff of smoke, a little bit of fire rolling out of the top of it. James just kicks it over onto its fucking wheels from its roof. And the thing takes off in a fucking cloud of smoke on fire down the fucking garden towards the driveway. Once it gets to the driveway, it can get to the road. And if it gets to the road, it can go to the neighbor's property. So Jimbo's got to stop the damn thing. He's 6'3", a goofy, chasing that thing down when he jumped on it and stopped. So Jimbo's first car was a 64 Mustang. He wanted a drawing at a car show. But it was a monster wreck, and it needed a shit ton of restoration. So him and his dad parked it in the garage and sat there and restored the entire thing. It was still in pretty rough shape when they were done, but it was still a car, damn it, and it ran. And it was in one piece and didn't look terrible. It wasn't in bad shape. It needed quite a bit more TLC, but it was good enough. 1964, this car had an AM radio at the time when we got into it. We had friends that were into car stereos, so we would get parts and pieces here and there, and occasionally we would come up with something that somewhat worked. Kinda. Well, anyways, he mounted one underneath his dash one time. It's a new CD player. Brand new. Brand new to us. He got this monster piece of crap sub that was all carpeted out. And it had an amp mounted to the side of it. Some just real garbage ghetto job. Something you see at like, fuck back then Radio Shack for like $199, but it's actually $39 worth of fucking parts crammed together into a pile of shit box. It'd have some stupid aftermarket logo on the front of it like POW or some stupid shit like that. Anyways, Jimbo was really proud of this. He comes driving up to pick me up in his little fucking 64 car, 6-cylinder. Oh man, it was a gutless wonder, but man, with those glass packs, it sounded powerful. It was amazing, the compression sounds that made. Just the snaps and pops. Oh, Oh, so many rings. Oh, that poor carburetor. He comes to pick me up, right? And he's got the stereo up, and it sounds like a bass mess. Just. Everything's rattling on the outside, just. Inside, it doesn't sound too terrible. And I'd cram my ass into this little car, and we'd be driving down the road, just listening to music, just at the full volume. But this CD player was such a piece of shit. If he hit a bump, it would skip the fucking song. So you'd be mobbing along, just bang. He used to drive that thing in cowboy boots and a cowboy hat. I had a ball cap that I used to wear that had a fucking smiley face shot into the brim that I did with a 22. When my mom and dad got married, my dad was a hunter, but he didn't own his own deer rifle yet. His uncle got him into it, so his uncle would let him borrow his deer rifle. For the longest time, my dad used small caliber rifles for birds and stuff, but he didn't have a deer rifle. First year my mom and dad got married, my mom set into plan to buy my dad his first deer rifle. It was fucking December. It was really nasty. It had been raining and it had been fucking snowing all the time, and my mom put an order out for a 300 Winchester Magnum with a loop-pulled scope. She knew a guy who was a really nice guy that was the dealer in town at one of these shops. And so she put in the order, and he delivered the rifle in the snow to the house out in the middle of fucking nowhere. This is back in the 80s. They don't do shit like this anymore. Guy delivered it all the way out here. My mom wrapped it, put a bow on it, and hid it. You had to hide it, because my dad was notorious for fucking taking the gift and shaking it and telling you what you got him. And a rifle in a box is a dead fucking giveaway, I'm just saying. Like, I know you got me a rifle when I pick it up and it's this long box. My dad had been working his ass off. He was trying to keep a roof over the head for my mom and I was just newborn. So, like, he taking care of a baby, you know, like, so he's stressed out. He hunted that season, and it was Christmas time. He had borrowed a rifle from his uncle again, and he hated it. So when he came out to a Christmas morning, he wasn't expecting anything. He just kind of thought, you know, oh great, you know, another day where we have to fucking do this, and this is gonna suck. He was cheerful, but at the same time, it was a heavy load to carry. You'll find through life, there's a lot of people that put a smile on their face and fake it for you. So Christmas is going. They open presents and everything's going great. Mom goes and grabs a camera. Dad's just sitting there like, what are you doing? Then she goes and grabs the box. And she brings out my dad's first hunting rifle. And he almost cried. He didn't expect it. That was the thing. It was just something that he knew he really wanted, and he'd always wanted this particular rifle. And she got it for him, for his first rifle, for their first Christmas together. I remember the pictures. I can't look at them anymore, they're gone. Fire took it. Same with the rifle. But it was the thought, and it was the sentiment of it. My dad killed a lot of deer with that rifle. He always treated that thing great. Never had a scratch on it. It was a great fucking gun. It was a good Christmas. I've got one. My dad had one gun when he passed away. It was that Christmas right before he died. I bought him a gun just for shits and giggles for his new piece for the house when he moved in. House was still being built. He was in a rehab facility healing from burns. He had been in the house fire prior and got burned pretty good on his arm and his head. There was just a lot of healing that we couldn't do at my grandma's house where my mom was staying at the time. So I'd go up there and I'd pick him up and I'd take him to dialysis 3 times a week because my mom was messed up. She'd been in a car wreck after the house fire, so she'd been through hell. She was surviving all that bullshit and I was just helping out. So I would take Dad to dialysis. That night I picked him up. It was Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve at dialysis. Rough times. But he was chipper. I went there and I picked him up. He had his leg on and he was ready to go. And I wheeled him down the hallway, got him out to the truck, got him inside and set him all up and then turned on his favorite radio station and drove up to the stop sign just outside of the area where this old folks home is. His rehabilitation center, I should say. It was an old folks home, but if you were injured enough as a young person, you could rehab here. He was worn out, been there for months. He was looking for something to look forward to, and I knew what to do to solve that problem. Growing up, my dad had a Ruger Mark I, and it burned in the fire. So I found a guy that was selling a Ruger Mark II target pistol with a bull barrel and a competition grip. I knew my dad would like this pistol, so I bought it. And I went and picked him up that night. We get to that stop sign. He's listening to his favorite radio station, and I reached under the seat and I pulled out that brand new box and I set it on his lap and I said, "Merry Christmas." And he sat there and he looked over at me and he goes, What's this?" Real soft-spoken guy, not really prone to like gifts or things like this. So this is a big deal. So he pops it open and I got the light on in the cab and he's looking down at this brand new pistol and he just starts to cry. It was a really nice, it's a stainless steel pistol. He starts to cry. He's just so happy. He just couldn't believe that I did that for him. He thought it was such a thoughtful gift, and he was really looking forward to shooting it. When he got to my grandma's house after rehabilitation, I gave him the gun and he loaded it that night. He never got to shoot it though. I have a love-hate with Metallica. I fucking love Metallica for what they are. I fucking hate Metallica for some of the bullshit that they've done in their past. I was a fan of Napster, and I'm well aware that it was stealing music, but when Lars got up and started being all preachy about how we were stealing his music, I didn't like that. That didn't seem very fucking metal to me. And I get it, we're stealing out of his pocket. Yeah, that was a shitty thing to do. Looking back on it now, I realize that, and we fixed the issue, but not really. Because I could still go on fucking YouTube and I don't have to actually purchase one fucking Metallica album. I can watch every goddamn song that they've ever made. For free. It's like you did nothing there, Lars. That's the first fucking show I ever went to, so I have to hold them close to my heart. My dad took me to that show. Corrosion of Conformity opened up for fucking Metallica. And they had such an awesome show. Fucking Metallica had the best show. They had all this pyrotechnics and shit, and they had this crazy theatrical act where one of the fucking crew members gets hurt from up above and ends up hanging from a rope, swinging back and forth after a giant explosion, and their stereo and everything all cuts out and shit. They even went as far as to bring the guy out in an ambulance. So I'm 13 just watching this it's real. They're taking a guy out of the fucking rose garden on a stretcher. For fucking months, I thought that was real. I really thought that was a real thing, and somebody got genuinely hurt at the Metallica show. It was all bullshit. I love that. I love it when a fucking band tricks me. And James is amazing. You can't hate that guy. Ooh, yeah! It's like Macho Man Randy Savage grabbed the mic and started singing. Oh yeah! There I am! Guy sounds like he's smoked cigarettes his entire life. Maybe he even ate them or some shit. I loved old Metallica. Come on, man. You can't fucking hate Master of Puppets. Back in those days, that was fucking great music. Speed metal was fun. I still think it's cool that was the first show I ever got to see. Some people will sit there and say, fucking Metallica's lame. Poser band. I hate them and shit like that. But, dude, when I saw them, nobody was talking that kind of shit. There were women that were throwing themselves at that band. There were men that were throwing themselves at that band. I'm sorry that I sang some of the Metallica. I'm sure that it ruined your whole entire opinion of me with my voice on Metallica. But seriously, amazing guitarists, incredible fucking vocals, and the drums are good. People want to bitch about Lars, but he's good. God damn, man. I love Metallica.
Yeah, so my buddy Shade and I, we showed up at Rockfest to go watch some bands. And I wore a hickory with an undershirt, black jeans, socks, and work boots. And it was 110. Yeah, it was like one of the hottest summers we had on record. And I really wanted to go see this show, and I was one of those people that really liked to cover up because I didn't like to reveal how fucking fat I had gotten, you know what I mean? We get to the show, and I got like 20 bucks in my pocket. That's gotta last me all day. I knew I was gonna get free chewing tobacco. I already bought my ticket. My liquor was in the truck. We drank beer all the way there and drank beer while we were in the parking lot and smoked joints and fucking, we were ready. We were pre-funking before the show even kind of began. So I get into the show. I'm already fucked up. Walked into the show, and it's hot. And there's no shaded area where we were at. It was a gigantic meadow. They had a shaded area, but there were already hundreds of people packed into this shaded area, like, because they were all trying to stay fucking savvy and not fucking die a heat stroke. I went through the whole show, and I wasn't feeling good. Like, by the end of the show, there were fucking people coming up to me and saying, you should go over to the medic booth. They're giving out water. And I'm like, they're giving out water? That's amazing, because it's $11 a glass here, so I've been not drinking. I'm just settled on the alcohol that I consumed before we got there. And I walked up to the med booth, and the guy was like, oh my God. He hands me this thing of water, and I'm looking at him like, what in the fuck is the problem? Drink the water down, and he's like handing me another one. I'm like, damn, hell yeah, man, free water. I take the water from him. He's like sliding this gigantic tub of fucking sunscreen over to me, and he's like, you need to put sunscreen on, man, you're burnt really bad. And I'm thinking, really? Like, there's no mirror, so I'm not like looking at my cell phone like, how fucked up am I, you know? As soon as the sun went down, I started getting chills, which I never got. And I was thinking like, man, maybe I did get pretty badly sunburned. I had a sleeveless shirt, like it was a Carhartt, or it was a Carhartt undershirt with a fucking hickory, and I had the sleeves cut off of it. And I looked down, and my arms were this color. So I knew I was in trouble. When I left Rockfest, I was like Stewie stepping out of the suntan booth, like, After that show, I spent weeks using aloe on my arms. I was peeling skin off from my shoulder all the way to my elbow in one piece. Dan jerky. 1010 would do it again.
There's been few times in my life that an actor or celebrity has passed away that really affected me. That was one. Chris Cornell. I grew up with Soundgarden. I grew up listening to Chris Cornell. Temple of the Dog was like one of the first albums that I remember listening to on a steady with Chris Cornell, and that had Eddie Vedder in it, and it was amazing. When I got the opportunity later on in life to actually see Chris perform, he was performing at the Sunlight River Amphitheater down in Ridgefield. He was opening for 9 Inch Nails, which I thought was kind of a slap in the face, but at the same time, it's okay. I wanted to see both bands, so I was just excited. And he fucking brought it, man. He was a fucking constant performer. He sings like the album. Better. He's better than the album. Hearing him perform live is better than the album because you can feel his heart in the lyrics. You could hear the pain in his tone. You could just see it in his eyes that he was suffering. I only wish his band had been performing on the same level he was that day. They weren't terrible, but they were a little slow, and I think he was having a hard time playing with them. Still the constant performer, though. He was amazing. Live, Chris Cornell's voice was just absolutely just somber, breathtaking. He was otherworldly to hear perform. Broke my heart that he killed himself. That's why people need to be mindful of their mental health, y'all. Make sure that you check in with your homies. Check in with your friends, your loved ones, and make sure they're doing okay when you see them down. You ain't gotta fix nothing. Just talk to them. Just talk to them. Let them know you love them. You miss them. That's all it takes. Really. They just need to know someone gives a fuck. Growing up on Soundgarden, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Alice in Chains, grunge. Just grunge in the 90s was something special. I mean, I wear plaid all the time. Come on, guys, you gotta know I love grunge. I know that you don't have to wear plaid and to like grunge, but it does work. It's kind of a Washington thing you wouldn't understand if you weren't from here. Sometimes I listen to Patience by Chris Cornell, the cover, which he killed. He did way better than the original. And I just think to myself, what he must have been thinking when he was singing that. I saw him just a few months before he passed. That's probably one of the last fucking shows he ever did. And it was brutal when he was gone because that was it.
You know that part in the Fast and the Furious where Vin Diesel's sitting there saying, "We used to race back here in high school"? Well, we didn't just have one spot that we used to race at in high school. Like I mentioned in that prior video, when the cops came, we got the fuck out of there. So we had a few places that we would designate as a race spot. And in the beginning of the night, we'd all meet up and we'd all start visiting about where those spots would be. And then when it came time, we would fucking drive out to those spots. And if shit happened, cops showed up, we knew where the next spot would be because we'd already discussed that shit earlier in the evening. And most people had CBs. We carried CBs, walkie-talkies in our cars, scanners, the fuzz buster. I mean, there was all kinds of shit we used to come up with. One of my favorite spots, though, was at Crest Lake. It's this small little lake, but there's a long-ass straightaway at that lake. And if you got up on the corner and set up your cars and staged, you could launch and do a whole quarter mile, and there was still plenty of room to stop. And there was an exit to the freeway, one exit that went back on the old highway, another way you could go the back roads all the way around and come through Kalama. I mean, there was different routes to go so you could get away from cops. About 20 of us met up down there one night, and I had my old pickup, and I was just parked there watching. I wasn't even racing. I just was there watching the show. We had a guy there that had a Nova, and he was just dominating people. He was making everybody look fucking stupid. And then you get a couple Honda cars out there, and they'd try to catch him, and he'd just be fucking pushing that car past all limits, and you could just hear him beating it. And you hear the motor starting to fuck up when he'd just hit right past you. When he'd blow past you, you could hear that fucking car pushing past everything it had. That's where I first heard the term floating valves. I hadn't heard that term before. We're out there for like 35 minutes, which was a pretty good run because most times you didn't get that much before somebody would call that shit in and here comes the cops. Well, over the scanner, all of a sudden, here comes the fucking cops. So we all got a piece, and I jump in my pickup and I took off. And right when I take off, I start heading in the direction I see red and blues in the sky from where they're fucking coming that way. Now I flip a bitch and I stood on it because I was trying to fucking get away from the cops and I wasn't trying to pay no ticket that night. Thankfully, I was able to get up on the freeway and I fucking took off on the freeway and they had a road construction sign up with your speed limit on it. And I passed that motherfucker at 120 miles an hour in my old two-wheel drive pickup. I could see his lights in the sky from the freeway as I drove to Kelso like a monster. I didn't give a shit. We had a meetup one night that was at Willow Grove, and a buddy of mine, we were out there in his short, wide Chevy. He had a four-wheel drive. It had about a fucking 600 horsepower, fucking 454 big block in it. He put on these really stupid fucking groundhog tires that were just bald as shit, similar to race slicks though. We showed up and there was way too many people. We knew we were going to get in trouble and we needed to get the fuck out of there the minute we got there. There was 30 people in the parking lot. That's too many. Cops were almost called instantly, but we were sitting out there in the middle of Willow Grove and my buddy's showing off his truck and everybody's like, what a piece of shit, it's an old fucking farm truck. He's one of those people that's like, yeah, jumps in it, fucking fires it up, does a 360 in the parking lot with one tire sitting completely still, and everybody was just silent after that. Fucker had snort. It was a nasty truck, but anyways, immediately
fucking cops are called. We're all sitting out there in the parking lot, and we're all like, all right, we need to get the fuck out of here. Well, out at Willow Grove, it's one way in, one way out. So, the cops had the road blocked. There's 30 cars, we're in a row, all headed out. One fucking road. We get up to the roadblock, and everybody's just like, fuck it. And they all start bailing around this cop that has his car crossed up, but not in both lanes. So everybody's hitting shoulders and going around into the other lane and just flying. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, everybody's just being fucking stupid. Like 5 of the guys that are with us that are racing stop. So the cop has no choice but to stay with them. The others, we were all mad dash trying to get to the end of Willow Grove before the next roadblock covered both road sides. We wouldn't be able to get by. Well, we would have. We were in a 4-wheel drive, and my fucking driver wasn't giving a fuck. He would have hit the shoulder and dumped it. Everybody else was in cars, though, so they all had no choice. So we were all mad dash to the end of Willow Grove. By the time we got to the stop sign, there was cops coming up both sides of the road, and we were all still just driving like animals trying to get away. And there were still so many cars, it was kind of like, there's not that many cops out here. Are you gonna get us all? Fortunately, they let the old work truck go by because we fucking just kept going and nobody turned for us, and we just made it. It was just a very fortunate incident that we made it and everybody else was getting hemmed up. Well, I mean, most of us made it, but quite a few people ended up getting tickets that night. That was also the last time we ever met up at that spot because it was so fucking stupid. It's a one way in, one way out. You don't want to get hemmed up. Yeah, I just bought my long bed the first time for my buddy. I say the first time because I sold it and then I got it back recently and now I need to repair it so that I can drive it again. Anyways, when I picked it up, it had a chain steering wheel. That was fun. Anyways, doesn't matter. I went to this fucking friend of mine's house one day and I was just hanging out. And we were sitting in his driveway and shit, and I pulled my pipe out and I fucking loaded it. And this was years ago, like a decade ago. And I fucking pull my pipe out and I fucking start smoking. I'm sitting there just toking away. We're bullshitting back and forth. I mean, just like friends do. And I mean, a fucking hour goes by. I'm getting toasted and I'm sitting in my truck. It's warm, the heater's on, and the fucking radio's going. We're bullshitting. He's like, all right, man, well, I gotta go do this shit and go to work. I'm like, all right, on. So I take my pipe and I put it right underneath my leg and I'm just like, take off out of the driveway. Didn't think anything of it. Turn out on a beach in Longview and I'm just cruising along and all of a sudden, fucking red and blue behind me. I'm like, oh, shit. I didn't put anything away. My weed, my pipe, it's all in the seat. Not anymore, though, so I'm wedging my weed up underneath the seat, and I've got my fucking pipe buried up underneath my ass cheek. I've got on a fucking beanie. I've got a chain steering wheel on a C10 Chevy. I know why he pulled me over. License, registration, proof of insurance. I lean over to grab it out of the fucking glove box, and I feel my pipe break. I make an audible noise like, oh! Because I realize I broke my pipe and I'm pissed about that, but also I don't want the cop to know I'm sitting on my weed pipe. And then I'm high as fuck. And he just pulled me over at the worst moment. I continue to grab my license registration, lean back and hand it to him. And he says, do you know why I pulled you over? And I'm thinking to myself, fuck. No, did I not turn my turn signal on? He's like, I don't know. Did you not turn your turn signal on? I'm like, fuck. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I did. He's like, yeah, I pulled you over because you're not wearing a seatbelt. And I'm thinking to myself, oh yeah, duh, dipshit. You left the dude's driveway. You never put your belt on. Not that I typically did, but I didn't put my belt on. I should say, right when this dude pulled me over, I lit a cigarette and started puffing like crazy, like chief on this thing before he walked up on the truck. So my truck reeked like a fucking butt. At least it didn't smell like chronic, I'll say that. Guy gave me a ticket, let me go.
I was so pissed. Got a ticket and broke my pipe. Fuck. My dad and I got into a pretty good argument one time, and I couldn't even tell you what it was about now. That's how good of an argument it was. They're never good. Don't talk back to your father. That's what I should have said to myself back then. But anyways, I had a friend that was having a party that weekend, and I just jumped in my pickup and left the house. I didn't even ask. I just left. My dad wasn't really one of the types to be like, "You're grounded." So he was just more like, "Oh, you're leaving? Sweet. We get the house to ourselves. Free night without Dan," kind of a thing. I didn't necessarily have to sneak out, but I just left anyway, so he didn't know where I was going. We got to the party, and I brought myself an 18 rack of Coors Light and a fifth of Black Velvet. I shared the Black Velvet because I wasn't trying to die of alcohol poisoning, but I drank all of the Coors Light and quite a bit of the Black Velvet. When I woke up, I was in the driveway at my old house. I don't remember driving home, but I was home. My truck was dead. I couldn't figure out what the fuck. Like, I woke up out of a stupor and my keys are on in the ignition, and I'm just looking around like, what the fuck happened? Like, I'm turning the key off, turning it back on in that like half-drunken stupor, like, why won't you work? I'm at home, so it's not like a big deal. I just get out of the truck and walk inside. And I kind of foggy, like rested off for the morning, and I go out there and check my truck because I'm like, what did I do? I figured I left the key on or something and it just died. And I go grab a battery out of one of my other rigs and I put it in that. And I'm sitting there turning it over, and the fucking thing will not fire. And that was very uncommon, and I'm freaking out because I'm like, what did I do to my truck? I'm thinking my dad must have did something and he's fucking with me or something. So I'm asking him, like, what did I do to my truck? Like, what's wrong? What did you do to my truck? He's like, where were you last night? I'm like, I was at a buddy's house. I fucking drank too much. He's like, yeah, I know. Fuck you, no. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? You got home at about 4 a.m. You parked in the driveway. You left your truck on. I'm like, I know. I'm trying to get the motherfucker started right now. He's like, no. It's out of gas. You sat in your truck all night with it idling. No, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Sorry, Dad. He wouldn't let me take his truck down to the store to get gas either. So I had to call friends to get help. He all but called me an idiot for drunk driving and then also chastised me and told me to never fucking do it again. First of all, I wouldn't feel defeated because do you think that I nailed it on the first try? I exercised and dieted throughout my entire life off and on and struggled to lose weight. In fact, it took me 32 years to figure it out. I wasn't always fat as a kid, but from the time I was about 6, I was overweight. And then I progressively gained weight until I got to junior high and I injured myself so bad that I could not exercise properly. Or at least that's what I thought, but I couldn't walk properly. My knees were just so damaged. Circumstances aside, I was 32 when I lost my father. Losing him the way I lost him just pushed me. I wasn't able to lose weight until he died. When he died, that was all of the fucking motivation that I needed. I quit eating fast food to start, and walking a lot. I quit drinking soda at the time, and alcohol. I cut them out of my life for years. I still don't drink. I mean, like, I'll have a glass of wine if it's a special occasion or something, but I'm not a drinker. Not anymore. I drank enough. I'm good on it. Just like drugs, just like stupid shit like that. I'm good on it. I don't do any of that shit anymore. I mean, I might smoke a little bit of cannabis here and there, but that doesn't mean the same shit. People will sit there and say, you smoke cannabis? What do you do for munchies? I don't get munchies. I just smoke weed, and I'm fine. I drink some water. I walk a lot. Middle of the day,
I'll be bored. I'll just start walking. I just randomly will just start walking. When you guys are watching me do videos, I'm walking a lot of the time because that's just a natural thing that I always do. And I'm burning it. I'm always burning it. I'm a candle burning at both ends constantly. I've had people on here say, how do you maintain it? You just do. You have to. So if you know about yourself and you know that you'll gain weight if you eat that, it really stops you from eating it. And I don't like Little Debbie cakes and fucking junk food and cake in general. I don't like any of that stuff. I don't like it. It doesn't taste good to me anymore. But you're not defeated. Like I said, this is just a long race. And you're in it still. It's just, you got kind of detoured. You're sitting for a second and taking a break. Motivation is important. You know that you're gonna die if you keep doing this. Lose the weight for yourself and your loved ones.